All right. Gaelic football coverage on Off the Ball is brought to you by AIB. Tomorrow night, weather permitting, under lights, Dublin and Mayo renewed the best rivalry of the last decade at Croke Park. To preview the game, I'm delighted to say we have a bona fide Mayo legend with us tonight. Don't take my word for it, though. Here's what Andy Moran had to say about Colm Boyle.
Colm Boyle has retired from Inter-County from Mayo. Can you talk to us about Colm Boyle?
Still waiting for the big statement out of Boiler. No, it won't come either, I wouldn't say so. No, just a great individual, great person, good teammate, great teammate. The story about Boiler, it's funny, and it's one of the bits that we talked about before. But Boiler was a really good minor, came into the senior squad, played in 2008 against Galway, got taken off at half time, and then that winter got dropped from the whole squad, just got dropped off the squad, went away, kind of fought his way back into the squad, put on 7-8 kilos of muscle, got his way back into the squad on a good club run with his club in 2011, and then all of a sudden won 4 All-Star.
Why was he dropped at that time? What was it physically when you need to go away and bulk up, or did he just kind of, or was there a specific reason given, or just took it upon himself to go and do that?
No, I remember he got taken off against Galway. He got taken off against Galway. Like what he was, Paddy, when he was a young fella in college with us, he was a really tenacious halfback, going in, winning breaks. But the game
like that all the time, not just in college.
but the game moved a tiny bit in that period. It just moved a tiny bit more physically with the corks and that. He was small and light. I think he had a bad game. He got sent off actually in 2007, the 21s. Got taken off in 2008 in that championship, and then got dropped that winter. And it looked like for all his career was over. But himself, Mickey Conroy went away, trained themselves into an oblivion. Like he came back, he was a different unit altogether.
And then won 4 All-Stars in a row. Colm Boyle, there are nice words that Andy Moran saying about you.
Yeah, nice to hear there from Andy. Obviously, nice to hear that back and hear about my time with Mayo and how it started, and I suppose how it finished, or how I got back in. Yeah, but nice to hear. One
of the things that defines your time with Mayo is the rivalry with Dublin. Is this the 1 week since your retirement where there's just a little bit of something rising inside you, and you're a little bit angsty, and you're not quite sure why, and it's the fact that you're missing it a bit?
Yeah, I definitely say this week. I haven't really missed it, I'll be honest, Ger. I haven't missed the training, surprisingly, which I thought I would. I don't know if it's the weather or what, but I just haven't missed it at all. But definitely, the Donegal game was the first time I kind of felt a small bit of an itch, definitely in the last 20 minutes or so. But now, even thinking of the boys getting ready, possibly maybe they might be hitting for Dublin this evening or tomorrow morning, I'm not sure. But even, that little bit of itch, geez, I'd love to be going to Croke now and be involved with the lads for this one. Yeah, you definitely will be thinking that in the lead up.
It's funny how you thought you were going to miss the training, because we all obviously always hear about the importance of the sanctity of the dressing room and the crack that you have, and I think everybody understands that. But sometimes it's the routine of actually knowing where you're supposed to be and feeling that you're part of something bigger, that actually that's also one of the pulls of staying as committed for as long as you did.
Yeah, it would be, and it's just the challenge as well of having to come to training and what it brings. You literally have to go into training, you have to be at your best, the same as going into a game. You need to be at your best, and it's that challenge, that you need going into training. You need to be so prepared. You need to be as prepared going into training as you need to be for the game itself. So, yeah, it's funny. I haven't really missed it, but it probably will come up, I'd say, as the year goes on, and definitely into the summer and into the championship. I'm sure I'll miss it that bit more.
When there's a bit of a stretch in the evening, maybe, I'd say, with Storm Eunice lashing outside, there's also part of you who's like, well, I'm looking forward to watching this on telly.
Exactly, yeah. I think it was the Dublin Kerry game there. I was watching there from the couch, and I was just thinking, I'm definitely better off here now where I am at the minute.
Before I ask you about this week's game and a bit about the rivalry itself, Andy brought up the point there of actually coming off the panel for a while, which most people, for a lot of people, it's a setback that they never recover from, where everything goes very straightforward. You're kind of clean through the minors and 21s, and you're shepherded straight into the senior squad, and then there's a setback. For so many people, that's the end of it, and they never come back, and they never end up having the second act that you had, which was obviously so spectacular. What was it that drove you on, that made you want to commit or double down on your commitment to coming back to play for Mayo seniors?
I don't know, I suppose just a desire to do it really. Like I was off the scene, but I was way off getting back in, you know, and I've spoken about this a lot. Like I was a million miles away from getting back really over the 2 or 3 year period. Like I've gone from being a fairly decent underage club player, inter-county player at minor and under 21, to obviously being on the senior squad in 08 and then get dropped and then to playing like really poor football. And my club, Davos, was intermediate at the time. And like I would have been really and very average intermediate club footballer in Mayo for them couple of years. Like, so it took a lot of things. It took obviously a bit of work, but it took a lot of luck as well. Like my club went on a really good run in 2011. And through that run then I was able to establish a bit of form, which obviously got James notice. And then obviously got the call back in. But look at it, a lot of it is luck. I worked hard obviously and did what I needed to do, but you need that bit of luck, and then obviously you get a bit of luck with the call back in, and then the environment then that you get called back into was obviously another hugely lucky thing for me, like as well, because I was able to thrive in that environment, which obviously led to good years over the years that were to follow.
You were obviously prepared for the environment as well. So I know you're saying it's luck, but obviously the harder you practice, the luckier you get. The Gary Player thing. Like, so had a penny dropped with you about what you needed to do to become better than an average intermediate club player?
Yeah, it did. Like, and it took, not that it took a while to drop, but I just didn't really know what to do myself, and I probably wasn't looking hard enough for the advice really to what to do. And I think the real, you used the term there, penny dropped. I think the real time it hit me, I think 2010, we were beaten in the quarter-final stage of the club championship, and like I was after having a really poor game. I was after having a really poor year in general, and it just literally a week after that game, I just said to myself, where are you going with yourself, and I just seeked out a bit of advice and
Who
got
from?
a bit of help.
Who?
It was actually from an old school friend, who was doing sports science in UL at the time. I don't know if he might say my name now, his name now at the minute, but Kieran Griffith. And I just literally spoke or got a bit of advice from him on what to do in the gym. He went through a couple of programs with me over a couple of months, and literally just saw straight away an upturn in my physique, first of all, and definitely when I got back playing for my club then it started through 2011, how that was transferring onto the pitch. After doing a full year of that, by the time I got called back into Mayo, then you talked about it there, I was a lot more robust, and I was able for the rigours, I suppose, of inter-county football, which I wouldn't have had 3 or 4 years previous.
Andy talks about the game changing as well. That Cork team that comes through and wins the All-Ireland against Down that year, and the Dublin team before that had been a much more physical, and that Kerry team obviously had everything, but they definitely had big men in the team, through the spine in the team as well. But after that, it seems like when Jim Gavin came in and the end of the Pat Gilroy period, that Dublin team was more based on speed than pure strength and physique. So your speed started to play into it being a massive advantage, your ability to get away from the tackle and to make cover and runs, where previously it wouldn't have been as useful because it was maybe underappreciated. All of a sudden now you're primed and ready to go as the game changes a little bit as well.
Absolutely, yeah, you're 100% right there. Like, actually being small, like I'm 5'9" in height, being small actually can have its advantages on the pitch as well. You can find yourself nearly glide past the bigger fellas or throw them a sidestep. A classic example there at the minute at coach level is Ryan O'Donoghue. Not the biggest man in the world, but literally throws a shimmy, throws a sidestep, and he's gone. So if you add all that into the robustness, funny you talk about the Dublin team there, and they had obviously massive speed as well, but they had huge physical men as well. When I'm talking more Flynn, Paul Flynn, obviously Jeremy Connolly, obviously going to the midfielders there, Bastic there at the time. They had a mix, obviously James McCarthy and whatnot. Look, they had
when you list them off like that, you're right.
So it wasn't the case that they were just all. But yeah, exactly your point. But you need that mix in the game now, and I think it's nearly more going to what you were saying there. It's nearly more going all about speed. Like you see, nearly midfielders now are more around the 6 foot 1 mark, and they're just animals to run. I think that's nearly the game is going in that direction. You
mentioned the physicality of Paul Flynn there. That's something I think you're intimately familiar with. There was an incident in a club game that the Mayo News, I think when you retired, they listed out 10 of your greatest Mayo moments. One of them was actually getting an elbow in the head from Paul Flynn.
Yeah, I completely forgot about it that till it was brought to my attention. Yeah, I think I still might have the mark from the elbow from Flair for that day. Yeah.
So you go off with a head injury, but you come back on, and that's the thing that from that point forward, the Mayo family cleaved you to their bosom, and you were one of their favourite sons. He got sent off, by the way, just for the record.
Yeah, I don't know, is it as romantic as that now, but yeah, something like that. We'll go with it.
Well, I'm not going to. Who am I to correct the Mayo News? I know better than that. The rivalry, the one last thing about this, the league games and how they function as part of it. It was very interesting to hear Paddy Andrews talk as well before about there's certain league games where they're like, okay, it doesn't really matter, we'll play well, the opposition will play well, at the end of it we'll see who wins. But you guys, they would have circled Kerry away, they would have circled and said, we're not going to let this team get away with a victory here, because it meant something later down the road, and they always felt like it gave them a psychological advantage whenever you met again. So from your perspective, were the league games, I mean, you guys actually made a habit of winning Connacht almost as easily as the Dubs did for a long period of time there, but it was definitely more up for grabs, the Connacht Championship than the Leinster Championship they would have been involved in. So I don't know how important the league was for you as players, but those games against Dublin, did they factor into later on in the year thoughts?
I know they were important to us, Ger. I won't lie and say that we weren't giving it everything or we weren't fully prepared for it. We were just it's funny. I'd say if you look back at a lot of the results, we were actually well beaten. It wasn't a case that there was a point or two in it, or they were closer on games. Even on the occasions they came to Castlebar, that, like you said, they were always well prepared. They were well. It's funny, they might have played a week or two before, and they might have a couple, 5 or 6 of their main boys, but just on the point you touched there, they'd land to Castlebar, or we'd be playing them in Croke Park, and suddenly all the boys would be back, and that, that's probably what they were targeting, and it usually worked out for them. We at that time we were in strange places in the league, just the fact that we boys based so many places all over the country, and a lot of teams are in that scenario and trying to get boys together during the week and whatnot. It's a bit more difficult maybe during the league, but definitely in the games, like I said, if you look back at them, that they completely dominated. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of times there was actually a couple of heavy beatings in there as well. So it's not too fond memories looking back on too many league games against Dublin, I'm afraid.
It never actually seemed to have an impact when you would meet later on in the year?
I don't really think so. If Anthony, you'd be nearly thinking about the previous championship game you played.
Right.
Obviously, if you did maybe pick up a league game, a win in a league game, it might be different, because maybe you might reference that more in the lead up to it. I don't really know. I know obviously the last time we beat Dublin in the league was 2012, which is hard to believe, and then obviously we went on to beat them the championship later on that year as well. But maybe if we had beaten them in the league maybe a bit more regularly, then possibly you may have had a small bit more belief going into the championship games against them or whatnot. But it's a funny one. They obviously, as successful as they were obviously very cute in how they targeted games, and we were obviously one of them. I think Paddy Andrews has mentioned that already, and Kerry, they were the ones they weren't losing, and that just shows how good they were and how focused they were. They were looking at certain games that they had pinned, and they were going to do the job on the given days.
It also shows, though, that they recognised that you guys were the main rivals to them, and that they wanted to have whatever little bit of an advantage they could get. Even if they believed in it, that kind of was probably enough for them. In terms of your own role against the Dubs, did you have a specific role every year that was the same role, or did that evolve and change depending on their personnel and depending on what the game plan was, depending on who the manager was?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there. Nearly depending on the manager was. Like, a lot of the time we played Dublin, it was literally just man for man, and away you go. You pick up a particular player on a particular day. There was the odd occasion I think we might have tried to be a bit more defensive, maybe played a sweeper or drop a sweeper back, and that might be me the odd time trying to drop in as an out and out sweeper, but a lot of the time, as you said there, it was literally just man for man defending, really. And literally it could be, I don't really particularly think I picked up a Dublin player on a number of occasions. I think maybe Kieran Kinney was probably the most I've marked. Earlier on, actually, was, as we've already mentioned, Paul Flynn. It was probably him, maybe throughout 12, 13, 14 years that I would have picked up on a bit more regular basis.
I don't think either of them was never an all-star in those years either. It's a nice handy job. I think Paul Flynn
nice handy
had
job,
3 or 4 in a row, and then Kilkenny had 4 or 5 in a row.
when he's running from the Hogan stand to the Cusack stand on a 60-metre run for every kick out. It's definitely not an ideal job, but so from then on, probably Ciarán Kenny would have been the most I picked up then, and maybe Conor Cannon a couple of times. But there was never really a specific player that I was given, on a regular basis, a man marking job to or whatnot. It was literally the thing about the Dublin forwards is, and I've said this a lot of times, particularly at that time, like you could be playing centre back against Dublin or wing back against Dublin, but because they interchange positions so much, the positions are nearly gone out the window. Like you could be playing at 6 and nearly find yourself in cornerback for 46-50% of the game, depending on the player you're marking or depending on the matchups and whatnot. So positions really definitely during them games and for them years were nearly gone out the window.
That is interesting. So you guys could have decided that you were going to be zonal in that you will stick to your positions and whoever is in that area you're going to pick up, but you actually decided pre-game it's man to man, whoever you're on at the start of the game, that's your job for the 75-80 minutes, whatever it's going to be.
Generally, yeah, unless there was something very specific, and obviously a specific player that might have needed obviously a bit more attention, or that there was a specific man marking role on. But generally, if you were given a matchup during the game, wherever he went, you were generally going with them. Yeah.
Right. And did you enjoy that? Because that does seem to, like, it partly suits you in, with your pace, it offers you the opportunity, if you do get a ball, that you're going to punish them as well, so they have to keep an eye on you too.
Yeah, but that was the nature of the games. Like if you look back at them, literally it's both teams were attacking, both teams were nearly defending all as the one unit. So like if we broke them down the defence, like we were, generally would be Lee obviously doing most attacking, or Donny Vaughan or Keith Higgins or Paddy Durkin, and I'd make the odd burst as well. Like, but they were the nature of it. But the other side of it, then when you were defending, like they were literally coming in waves from everywhere as well, from Jack McCaffrey to James McCarthy as well, and coming through the middle. So they were the nature of the games, just the general chaos of it, and the attacking nature of both teams.
When you were becoming a sweeper for those games, is that more the Rochford era? Was that kind of when you were trying that stuff?
Yeah, I think we might have tried that a small bit more under Stephen than we would have under previous managers. Yeah, definitely. And
so how involved in the conversation, the build-up? Is it like, look, we're thinking about this is going to be your role, this is what it'll involve? Or is it like, is it a 6-month long process where in training one night you're like, look, at some stage during the season we're going to want to go to a sweeper system, it's going to be you if everybody's fit, and this is where it's working. How does that process, and how do you even change your brain to make sure that you're ready for it?
Well, I'd say even 2016 itself was probably the most time we actually tried to utilise a sweeper more so than we would have in previous years. So we would have done it a lot of the time in the build-up to in the run to the All-Ireland final itself. So the process to do it and how to do it was almost there, but doing it against the Dubs is a different thing, because they're 6 forward. Like usually we use 6 forwards, on a team, one of them or two of them will naturally drop back when you have the ball, so you can automatically create your sweeper off him straight away. They're a bit more defensive, say a 12 or a 10 dropping back, and you can play your sweeper role off him. With the Dubs, because their forwards naturally played so high, it was a bit more difficult to do that from their 6 forwards. You know what I mean? Because what would happen then if you dropped off, just say Paul Flynn or Ciarán Kenny, whoever it is, then they're just going to get on a load of ball around the middle third of the pitch, and obviously they're starting the Dublin attack for them. So it had to be a bit more structured in how we were doing it against Dublin, and it was tough to do, and a lot of the time you might get that actual sweeper in place as quick as you'd wanted against them.
Right, so it's actually a fluid thing mid-game.
Yeah, but what you're nearly relying on is a half forward to get back, to release a midfielder that'll nearly get back and pick up your man as such around the middle of the pitch, which allows you then to drop the 15 or 20 yards off then into the 6th position. But like I said, it's very easy to talk about it, it's very easy to do, but to do it at the moment, especially in the transition of a quick turnover or something like that, that's obviously the most difficult time to do it. It's a bit more easy maybe on a slowed up attack where they've loaded the bodies back.
Right.
And you automatically might get your extra defender there. Literally, if you just hand back at the 6th position and you're nearly there, back receiving ball and keeping the ball moving, you're automatically going to be an extra defender then if a turnover happens.
And when that conversation is had with you, when is that conversation had with you first off? And also, are you immediately receptive to it, or do you think, well, that's not what our strengths are? Did you need convincing?
Yeah, I was receptive definitely to it, and happy to do it, more than happy to do it. Like, it wasn't always me that did it throughout the years, but probably more so it was. So I would have seen it as my role in the team at the time. But I think it was something that we knew we were very good one-on-one defenders, so we didn't want to go completely the fact that we needed to, bring loads of bodies back. But at the same time, we wanted to try and minimise as much, because the opposition that you're playing with are so good. You need to try and minimise the risk as much as you can. And if having one plus defender there on a number of their attacks is going to help that, then it's something you're obviously going to want to try if it's going to help you to win the game.
Right. Did it work in retrospect? Do you think it worked?
Results will probably tell you not. Then again, you don't know if results would have been any different if we tried something different. To be honest, I don't know. On occasions it did. We still conceded goals. Obviously the main objective of that is not to concede goals. Really, that's the thing. If you're conceding points, you're not that you're happy with that, but it's obviously less damage done than goals. But we did still concede goals at vital times in the game, so people will probably tell you that it wasn't effective maybe as it could have been.
Yeah, at the same time, like, we're talking about the greatest team of all time who go on to do 6 All-Irelands in a row, and you guys have multiple draws with them over that period of time, and nobody else does. And Kerry did it once, fair enough, towards the end.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, and the thing about them, when they did attack that time, like literally the wave of runners coming from everywhere, like we already mentioned there about Chase McCarthy and Jack McCaffrey and these boys coming from Philip McMahon coming from the back, like these boys were coming from everywhere, and that is so literally, if you switch off for a second in a 70 or 80 minute game, then they're going to get a goal chance. You know what I mean? You're relying on David Clark, you're relying on Rob Hindley to pull a save out of the bag. You know what I mean? And that's the nature of it. And they would have been the same with us. They would have been stopping us. Like, there was so many opportunities that we had as well, where we got through their defence and had goal chances, and possibly didn't take as many as we did too. And that's the nature of the game on the big day.
When you finish, right, and you have a little bit of time away now from the grind and the routine, do you look back on that and realise that you have this central role as a group, and that you're part of a team that has a central role in creating the greatest team of all time, and that, like, they needed a rival, and you were their rival toe to toe from the start to the finish essentially of your career? You talked about the 2012 victory against them in the championship, which obviously helps them to recalibrate and change their style a bit, almost as much as the Donegal one a couple of years later. But, like, you guys were the only ones who put it up to them consistently over that period of time. Is there comfort in that, or is it like, Jesus?
Yeah, it's more the Jesus. Yeah, definitely. I look at it like there were magical days, like, on magical occasions like that. I won't deny that. Like, and I do have brilliant memories from it, as heartbreaking as the defeat were, disappointing as the defeats were on the days, but like they were unbelievable occasions to be involved in. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And obviously you'd love to have the winners' medals and whatnot for them, but just when you're talking about life experiences and just to feel Croke Park literally shudder around you as you're, the place is nearly moving. The stands feel like they're moving while you're on the pitch, and to feel that atmosphere of 40,000 Dublin fans to 40,000 Mayo fans, and the place just going wild for 70 or 80 minutes, and to feel that on so many occasions was absolutely brilliant. And like I said, they're like magical days, life experiences, and to win would have been great, but it wasn't to be. Well,
4 successive All-Stars suggests you did your bit anyway in the middle of it all.
The All-Stars are great. I think I described them before to someone as I think it's 50 journalists or whatever, 20 journalists go into a room and pick the All-Stars, and possibly 15 other journalists went to another room. They might have 7, 8, 9, 10 changes on it. But look, All-Stars are great and they're nice to get. I think it's more, and I've said this before too, I think it's more nicer for your club and your family as a kind of recognition for them more than anything. But for the individual itself, yeah, it's all about the team. And it's all about trying to be successful as a team.
That's fair enough. The game this weekend, then, if we can turn our attention to it again, as we record this, it looks like the game's going to go ahead, weather dependent. Dublin are favourites for it, which I was surprised by, given the struggles that the team have at the moment. And I know there's a potential whenever the actual teams take the field, we'll wait and see who's fit and who's not from a Dublin perspective. But I actually don't make them favourites for the game. I think that this is an opportunity for Mayo to drag the Dubs into some deep water and maybe just... it's not revenge for anything, but like it's to set their own marker for the rest of the season. When they were marking it on their calendars, this is an opportunity for Mayo this weekend.
It is an opportunity, there's no doubt about it. There is a kind of sense in Mayo at the minute that everyone is kind of happy enough with how the league has started, 3 points from 4 from Donegal and Monaghan. Especially, I don't think they had a huge pile of training done before the Donegal game, so I think James in general would be happy with that. But at the same time, go to Dublin. The league is fully jars in. You can be nice and comfortable, and next thing you lose a game, and just say Mayo got beaten tomorrow evening. All of a sudden, you have 3 points from 6, and then you're playing Armagh the following weekend. Probably the form team in the country at the minute. You know what I mean? And then you're followed by 2 away games to Kerry and Tyrone. So things could look very different after Saturday evening or after a couple of games in a couple of games' time. So for me, go back to Saturday evening, it's a massive game. It just, for Mayo, for me, they just need to kind of block out the noise that's around Dublin at the minute. Because there is a lot of talk about Dublin. And a lot of, to me, is nonsense at the minute. For Mayo, they just really need to bring a focus to it and really bring an edge and to focus on what the game is. It's a league game in February with 2 points at stake, with 2 big points, and really go up there with an attitude that this one is there for them. If they bring a performance, they're not going to win this game without bringing a performance, and I think that's the big thing. So, like I said, if Mayo can bring an edge and bring that winning mentality to Croke Park Saturday evening, then they're going to be able to shout, no doubt about it.
We're starting to see some of the players who have been out for Mayo come back. Oisin Mullen is named in the team this weekend, a few others as well, and we're hearing that most of the rest of the injury concerns should ease their way, the long-term injury concerns should ease their way out over the next 2 or 3 rounds of the league is what James Horan is saying at the moment. And there's actually only 10 weeks to the first round of the championship against Galway, so this weird telescoped season, strength and depth is going to be hugely important. With that in mind, how do Mayo recover from Tommy Conroy's absence?
Look, you can't sugarcoat it. It's a huge loss, sure, but just go back to the injuries. Like, I think for this weekend, there is a couple of boys back. Obviously, Oisin and Matty are two kind of the bigger profile names that's back in this weekend. But I think, judging by the team released by Mayo, I think Paddy Durkin and Jason Doherty and Brendan Harrison all seem to be out of the 26. So while they do have boys back in for this week, there is obviously other boys that dropped out. So it's kind of nearly evened itself out. And I think the 7 changes overall to the Mayo team that's named. Even though, as usual, you won't be 100% surprised if there's 1 or 2 changes before throw-in. But in general, it is a strong team. I think there's boys getting opportunities there, like obviously Roy Brickerton, Donald McHugh, obviously Matthew Wan is back, Jordan Flynn, and then you've Jack Carney after winning the All-Ireland club with a junior club title with his club Kilmina there 2 weeks ago. So he's going to be flying on the crest of a wave, and then big opportunities for the likes of Paul Towie and Aidan Norm starting his 3rd game in a row. And these are all huge games. I think you mentioned it there. It's 10 weeks between now and the end of between 10 weeks between now and the end of between now and the start of the championship. Yeah, the Galway game. So you literally don't have time. Like, James Horan won't have time after the league to find out, are these boys good enough, or are these boys going to be ready to play championship football. So he literally needs to find out now. So Saturday evening in Croke Park is an absolute ideal time to find out our boys ready for what he needs later on in the year.
And one last thing about the Dubs, I think that there's definitely some of the analysis which is bang on. Like, if you take a straight line from the second half of the game against Mayo through to where they are at the moment, there is cause for concern amongst Dublin fans, given how much of the brain power of the amount of All-Ireland medals that have actually left the squad. So we don't know what this new crop of youngsters are going to be like, and how long it's going to take them to get up to. We don't know if they're in the middle of your cycle when you were uncertain about what it is to be an inter-county player, or if they're actually ready, if they're you circa 2011, 2012 and you were like ready to go again. So that's the big question mark over them.
It is a big question mark, and you might actually find that a couple of boys that are playing there at the minute, it might be next year before you actually see them flourish in a Dublin jersey. That might be the reality of it. I think for Dublin, if they can pick 1 or 2 of them, if 1 or 2 of them boys do come through that's playing at the minute, and obviously they get the mainstay back, I think everyone has pretty much name-checked the boys that's been missing so far from the league. I think 7 pretty much nailed-on starters that didn't play against Kerry. Like, even if they've two or three of them back against Mayo, all of a sudden it looks like a completely different Dublin team on paper. And I think for Desi Farrell in particular and the Dublin players, I think this is an ideal game for Dublin, just to get the juices flowing and to get them, they'll be talking about the whole country, talking about them, how the whole country is saying Dublin is kind of finished and on a downward trajectory. And then Mayo coming to Croke Park, Saturday evening game, should be a decent crowd. I think that's exactly what Desi Farrell need. That exactly like the likes of Brian Fint and Kieran Kenny, just to get the juices going on them boys. And I've no doubt you're going to see a much improved Dublin performance tomorrow evening. The other side of the gate, how good Mayo are going to be. If I was James Horan, I'd be looking for a really fast start to really put the pressure on them. And Mayo haven't started well in their last 2 games. I think against Donegal in general, Donegal should have 3 goals scored in the first half. Against Monaghan could have 1-2, 1-3 on the scoreboard before Mayo scored the last day, but they missed a lot of chances. So all these things are going to factor in, but to me, a really fast start from Mayo puts Dublin under pressure. But like I said, I really expect Dublin to come out fight and to have a real edge about them Saturday evening. It should make for a really good game, hopefully.
Well, let me posit this final scenario here before we let you go. Is there a world in which the Dubs have a disastrous league campaign where actually they get a point against Kildare or they don't even, and they're still Dublin come the championship, that actually, because of the age profile of the team and the experience they have, they don't really need to be flogging those players who are missing, and even some of the ones that they're picking week in, week out, and that it doesn't really matter, that they're still in the game with 10 minutes left to go in the All-Ireland semi-final, and they're still Dublin?
They're still going to be Dublin, yeah. I agree with you, Ger. They're still going to be there. It will be tough though if they don't finish the league well, and that's why I think these 2 weeks, that's why I think they're going to be better. The first 2 weeks can be a real slog. I think the next 2 weeks we're going to know a lot more about Dublin and how they're going to be fixed going forward. And like I said, I'd be surprised if we don't see a couple of more boys back into the team on Saturday evening, a couple of their more regular boys. But I think going forward, if they didn't finish the league well, like I said, if they only got maybe 1 win or 2 wins and they end up being relegated, it would be a huge concern. I think that would be a real knock to the confidence, even to the older boys who've been around for so long. But I'd be surprised if that happens. I like I said, I think Dublin are going to come out fight. They're going to come out fight starting tomorrow evening. Hopefully Mayo will be able to deal with that. But I'd be surprised if Dublin don't pick up enough points along the way to finish the league on a decent run.
All right, give us your prediction then for Saturday night.
I'm hoping for a Mayo win. I think the Mayo bench, if judged by what's starting, and obviously as we're talking now, I don't know the Dublin team or whatnot, but if it comes down to it, Mayo have a really good strong bench there. The Hessian is back at it. Park O'Hora is on the bench, even though I have a feeling he might start. Aidan O'Shea has been really good coming off the bench in the last couple of games, and then Kevin McLaughlin's on the bench as well, and Fionn McDonough fresh after winning the Sixth title there during the week. So I think if it comes to it and it's really tight come down the stretch, hopefully the Mayo bench might be able to swing it first.
Colm, great to have you with us. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks a million, Ger.
That's Colm Boyle there giving us his thoughts ahead of the game on Saturday evening between Dublin and Mayo. We'll obviously have analysis and reaction for you on Sunday. And of course, all the Gaelic football coverage and Off the Ball is brought to you by AIB.